Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of The Pack. Eli Berkovitz here. Very excited to be talking to everyone tonight. Obviously, wish it was coming off of a win in Denver. That is not the case. We will get to everything involving that Bronco game soon enough. Pretty painful. As you can see, though, before we get started, I am a lone wolf tonight. Unfortunately, Zach and Jen, very busy people, living very impressive lives. So I'll be here holding down the fort tonight. Hopefully, the whole crew, or at least most of the crew, is back sooner than later. But for now, you're stuck with me. And whoever's out there, whoever's watching, if there's anyone, jump in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling right now about everything going on in the Packers world. I'm not thrilled about it, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't think many people are. But either way, there are things to get to, and there's news to talk about, and we got to figure out what's going on. So first, let's knock out some news, and then we'll get to, what's happening, Broncos and all that. So today's Wednesday. Some news out of Packers practice. Let's start positive, and then we'll get a little bit negative. But positive, Jaire Alexander, Devontae Wyatt, Devondre Campbell all returned to practice. Well, practiced on a limited basis. Wyatt was hurt on Sunday. Jaire and Campbell did not play on Sunday at all. And Christian Watson practiced in full, which if you saw the end of the Broncos game, he kind of came off the field at the end there. Looked like he was in pain, so that's really nice to see that he's fine. And then some signings, actually, for the Packers today that coincide with some of the negative news. So I guess let's get to that first. Darnell Savage and Eric Stokes have been placed on injured reserve. Doesn't mean it's ending their season, but they will miss the next 4 games. It really is tough. I mean, for both guys, it's always tough. But Darnell Savage was in the middle of what seemed to be a bounce back season in a contract year, could have, really made an impact for his future. Now he's going to miss at least 4 games. We'll see how he looks when he gets back. And then Eric Stokes, of course, we all know we waited since last year, week 9, to see him play. And he didn't play a single defensive snap on Sunday, 4 snaps on special team, leaves with a hamstring injury, and is now on IR. I would just like to say, why the hell was Eric Stokes coming out first on special teams instead of on defense? I understand easing your guys into action, but I wouldn't say sprinting down the field on kick coverage is easing anyone into action, and especially when Jaire Alexander did not play and Carrington Valentine struggled in man-to-man coverage through a lot of that game. Obviously, Stokes was injured at that point, but you would have to wonder, maybe don't play your coming off injury cornerback on kick coverage. Maybe he would have been able to play cornerback, the position you drafted him at, and it would have helped. But who am I? Who knows what they were thinking or why they were thinking that, but it is what it is. So, yeah, Savage, Stokes to IR. So the Packers made 2 signings today, actually. Robert Rochelle, I believe is how his last name is pronounced. He is going to be on the active roster, so straight to the 53. We'll see what he brings if he plays Sunday. And then Zion Gilbert, another defensive back, was signed to the practice squad. So obviously they're just trying to get some bodies in there, see who can help. And then finally, guys who did not practice, Aaron Jones, Luke Musgrave, and Josh Myers. Aaron Jones, LaFleur said, he was a bit sore. They want to try to get him more touches. So I think Jones is kind of more maintenance. I mean, I think he's going to be dealing with this hamstring the rest of the season. So get used to seeing him on the injury report. Musgrave with the ankle still in a boot. I don't know if you missed it. He left the game on Sunday in a boot. And I believe Matt Steinman reported today he is still wearing that boot, which is not great considering it's Wednesday. I would have to imagine his availability for Sunday is in serious doubt right now. And then Josh Myers, we saw he got banged up a bit on Sunday. He did not practice today. We'll see if he ends up playing. If not, we know they could put Zach Tom there. We know they could put Elton Jenkins there even. So they'll have a plan. And we're going to get to the offensive line soon enough because there's obviously a lot to talk about there. But that basically covers all of the news. So let's just get to the Denver game and try to get through this without, any emotional breakdowns or crying or cursing, because that was tough. Looking at the way the last few weeks of the Packers have gone, I guess in my head, I was like, all right, lose to the Lions, lose to the Raiders, which really is pretty pathetic in my opinion. But, we were injured. All right, get to the bye week, come out of the bye week, and you kind of have not a layup matchup against Denver. They're not absolutely awful, but definitely one of the worst teams, not worst, but one of the worst teams in the NFL. And you go there and it's the same thing that we saw before the bye. It's the same thing we've seen essentially since week 3 versus the Saints, which is an offense that cannot get anything going in the first half whatsoever. Like, not even like, oh, they put together a couple good drives and, there were some missed opportunities. No, we're talking cannot get the offense going at all. So you can look at LaFleur, you can look at Love, you can look at the offensive line. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around everywhere. So for me, I guess let's just start at the top of the, in terms of hierarchy. Matt LaFleur, I've been pretty critical of Matt LaFleur's play calling for a while, but that was usually like situational play calling. I usually would criticize 3rd and 4th down, red zone, short yardage, stuff like that. Now it's just like, it's everything. It's just the game plan in general. It is down to down. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Why are you doing this? I mean, first downs for the Packers this year have been atrocious. The amount of jet sweeps, reverses, throws behind the line of scrimmage, all this fancy, crazy stuff on first down that never works. It does not work at least once this year, and very, very rarely works when you have a play starting 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It's just not a good idea. He consistently does it, and then it's 2nd and long, and then it eventually ends up being 3rd and long, and then every week in the press conference, it's, you got to avoid these 3rd and long situations. We got to do a better job on 1st and 2nd down. Well, how about call a normal play that's going to gain anywhere between 2 and 5 yards and work from there? Like, you want to get easier 3rd downs, but on 1st down, you're basically doing all or nothing shots, hoping you're not even going to see 2nd down, hoping that on this reverse or on this backward screen pass that it's going to go for a gain of 10 plus and you're not even going to have to worry about 2nd. It doesn't even make sense what he's doing. Excuse me. So just the play calling for me is, I think it's the biggest issue, because bottom line, if your play calls are bad, doesn't matter how good you execute, doesn't matter how good your players are. If it's a play call that's not going to succeed, it's not going to succeed no matter who's running it. So that's a huge problem for me. Matt LaFleur's play calling, it just needs to get better. There's no fancy way of saying it. He just needs to get so much better. Not just better, so much better. It's insane. Excuse me. Dealing with a bit of a cough here as we get to the winter. But all right, let's move on next to Jordan Love. It's tough. There's some good, there's some bad, and there's definitely some ugly. It's like he could go from one quarter looking like a quarterback that you're wondering, how was this guy drafted in the 1st round? How is he starting for an NFL team right now? To the next quarter where it's like, oh my God, like this is the guy. We're good. The next, in the line of Favre, Rodgers, here comes Love. And I do still lean on that side, where I lean towards Love being the guy and being someone that is going to be the franchise quarterback for this team. I mean, we're only 6 starts into his career. What are we, 2 and 4? Yeah, we're 6 starts into his career. So this isn't time to jump ship, panic, do anything crazy. But it is concerning that here we are, again, only 6 weeks, but 6 weeks is 6 weeks. It's, almost half the season. And it seems like we're seeing some of the same issues in terms of his decision-making, his accuracy, especially deep downfield. And look, I love the fact that he's willing to take shots and he has the highest air yards per attempt and everyone wants to talk about it. That's great, but it's better to be completing passes. Even if, like we saw in the first half versus Denver, it was definitely not effective and good to see them dink and dunk 3-4 yards down the field, and it didn't work. So that can't be all you do, but it could be part of what you do. So I think Love needs to find a better balance with chucking the ball deep and taking what the defense gives you. But that also does come and, fall on the receivers, tight ends, and running backs to actually make plays with the ball in their hands. I feel like 2 of the guys that I'm seeing get a lot of these dump off passes when the stuff downfield isn't working is Luke Musgrave and A.J. Dillon. And A.J. Dillon, shockingly, at least on Sunday, broke a couple tackles. But for the most part, we know he's not doing that. And Luke Musgrave in college was great with the ball in his hands after the catch. So far in the NFL, it seems like you basically put anybody near him, he's going down. So And it's tight end that size, that kind of speed, that frame. He's not like a big clunker. He's a fast guy. He's going to have to learn how to make some plays with the ball in his hands and extend, a dump off of 4 yards instead of it being a 5-yard gain because you're tackled immediately. If he could break a tackle, a 4-yard dump off can turn into an 8+ yard gain, maybe even a first down. So we got to see these guys make plays for Love because it can't all be on Love. But what may be a bigger issue than Jordan Love, it might even be a bigger issue than Matt LaFleur, but I don't think so, is the offensive line. The offensive line is playing, it's so bad. It's crazy. All of you know, of course, Zach, one of my 2 wonderful co-hosts here. He spent the whole offseason talking about how the Packers have the best or one of the best offensive lines in the league, and I agree. I'm not trying to call him out. I agreed then, but looking at it now, David Bakhtiari, of course, not there. But even in our heads, I think many people were looking at the Packers' offensive line as very good, even without David Bakhtiari, because they kind of have been for the most part. But we are just seeing, no other way to say it, just bad performances, bad seasons out of most of this offensive line. Elgton Jenkins, he missed some games with a knee, and maybe he's not 100% yet, but I don't think he's ever looked like this in his career. Consistently giving up pressures, missing blocks, and he's not like the worst on the line, but he's their best player. You expect him to play the best. It hasn't been the case. Rasheed Walker is a complete, I'd hate talking like this about Packer players. I do. It's been a nightmare. Like, he started off really solid. I still think he definitely could have a strong career ahead of him. He's a young guy, 7th-round pick. It takes time to develop, but I just don't think he's there yet. And the fact that we know Yosh Nijman is just sitting on the bench waiting when we've seen him play game after game after game, giving us quality performances, if not really good. Sure, he's had his bad moments. Everyone does. But for the most part, Yosh Nijman was a quality, at worst, quality offensive tackle in the NFL. And we're seeing Rasheed Walker just get dominated week after week. And it's not even by like the best guys in the league. He's just simply getting dominated, and they're not giving Yosh a chance. I don't get it. I don't know if it's like a personal thing, because I don't know how it can be a play thing. Because at this point, even if you weren't super confident in Yosh's play, I don't know how, as a coaching staff, you can look at Rasheed Walker and say, this guy has earned the spot to continue to start here. He hasn't. Sorry. I hope he does one day. He hasn't right now. And they're just continuing to start him. It doesn't make sense to me. I really hope. This week, if Josh Myers doesn't play, I think we see Zach Tom at center, or what I want to see. Zach Tom at center. We'll have Yosh. Yeah, no, we could do a number. We could do Yosh at left tackle. No, we really do Yosh at right tackle, Elgton at left tackle, Runyon where he always is, and then at left guard, we could do Newman. At left guard, we could do Sean Ryan. I don't know. I just think you've got to find a way to put your best 2 tackles out there. And for me right now, that is Yosh Nijman and either one of Zach Tom and Elgton Jenkins. But it is definitely not Rasheed Walker. So the offensive line, it's killing the offense. There's nowhere to run the ball. Love doesn't have time to throw the ball. It's a nightmare. If you have a bad offensive line, you can't get anything done in the NFL. And right now, the Packers' offensive line is playing terribly. So they've got to fix it, or this season is not going to go anywhere. Plain and simple. Love can progress, but if this offensive line is playing the way it's been playing, we'll be lucky to see 4 or 5 wins this year. We're currently at 2, so that's fun. Let's go one last thing. 2 more things on the offense before we get to the defense. Dontavian Wicks, obviously a fun trick play pass that he made, a very good throw, but also made a nice catch. He is someone that I expect them to get more involved in the offense, and I think they should. I think he's a playmaker, and we saw it in his college tape. And sometimes, he was a 5th or 6th round pick. It happens where players drafted that later good, and I think this guy's good. I want to see him get used. And the last touchdown of the game, that 4th down through Dobbs' hands, caught by Reed. I'm not really bringing it up to talk about it. I'm just saying it was very cool. Bit of a miracle, or definitely a miracle, but it was fun. We don't get to see a lot of that. Not a lot of balls have bounced the Packers' way this year, so that was nice to see. But let's get to the defense, and I hate to break it to you, it's going to be mostly negative once again, shockingly enough. So the run defense, this should be no surprise. Once again, absolutely awful. Gave the Broncos their best rushing day of the year. Made Javonte Williams look like, North Carolina Javonte Williams. He has not looked good this year. I think he's a good player, but he's coming off an ACL. you could check my Twitter page. I posted a picture of a few of them. There were running lanes you could fit a truck through and gain 40 yards. It was insane. I mean, just wide open holes. I think Andy Herman did a great breakdown near the goal line with the formation, not the formation, with the personnel the Packers had, where the Broncos are all heavy, clearly running the ball near the goal line, and the Packers subbed out two defensive tackles and brought in, I think it was Isaiah McDuffie and Keyshawn Nixon. So an off-ball linebacker and a cornerback they brought in at the goal line when the Broncos brought out their heavy set. So that just shows you what Joe Barry is doing on a week-to-week basis. I mean, he is basically completely lost, or I don't know, maybe he thought of a new way of playing defense. I'm going to put my smallest guys against your biggest guys on the goal line, and maybe it'll work. I don't think it's going to work with Joe Barry. Clearly his track record of success is obviously why he's continued to be trusted as defensive coordinator of this team. And I'm sure no matter how bad it gets, he will be here through the remainder of the season. So that's really cool. It's really cool to see, once again, the Packers not holding people accountable. I think that is, maybe I'm piling onto LaFleur here, but I think that's something we've seen a lot throughout LaFleur's career is he, I think, has a real aversion to doing anything mid-game in terms of switching personnel, of benching someone or taking someone out. And my biggest example in my head goes back to the San Francisco 49ers playoff game, I believe in 2021, in the divisional game in Green Bay where they lost. They put Dennis Kelly to start at right tackle. And you had Josh Nijman, who was starting that whole time and was really good, had him on the bench. Kelly got destroyed. Rodgers got destroyed, pressured all game, sacked, and he never changed it. No matter how bad it got, he never changed it. And look, I understand. Stick by your guys. Give them the confidence. Give them a chance. But at a certain point, it's the NFL. And if you're not getting the job done, we're not talking about 1 week. We're not even talking about a few weeks. In Joe Barry's case, we're talking about a few years now. You're not getting the job done. And then Rasheed Walker, just in this kind of context, basically since week 3, he's been really bad. So now we're going into week 8. 4 games have been played since then. If you're starting at offensive tackle in the NFL as a 7th-round pick with no experience, and you're 4 straight games playing, let's just be real, really bad, and that might be putting it kind of nicely, you didn't earn that spot. Why is that still your spot? Because you got drafted at the end of the draft, and saying there's no experience. It's not like, it's a bad stretch. Like Elgton Jenkins right now, we can say, I don't know if it's his knee or he's just having a bad couple games, but we know Elgton Jenkins is good. He's shown us years of experience of being good. Rasheed Walker has not shown the coaching staff or anyone else consistent play during an NFL game that he is good. And yet Matt LaFleur is just like, no, I don't want to hurt his confidence. I mean, that's not exactly what he said, but I'm just trying to think of what the reasoning could be that he's still out there. But I get it. You don't want to bench a guy and hurt their confidence. But if you're not doing your job, you get benched. It's the NFL. So that can continue. It's very frustrating. And sticking with frustrating was watching the Packers front 7 try to get pressure on Russell Wilson on Sunday. It was not good at all. Sure, there was some pressure that he escaped from, but there wasn't any really, really close sacks even. Like Preston Smith had a sack on the stat sheet, but it was I think it was a no loss, maybe a loss of 1, and it was while Wilson was basically running up the middle, and he just tackled him. But at no point was Rashawn Gary, he definitely had some pressures, but it was not nearly enough to get them off their game. And Denver, Russell Wilson's been pressured a lot this year. They don't have a great offensive line. Russell Wilson's not been playing great. And yet, while they only scored 19 points, it was far and away their most efficient and best offensive game of the year. And they continued to move the ball down the field. I think they had 5 consecutive scoring drives, which is insane considering what we just saw out of them 2 weeks ago versus the Chiefs, where I think they were shut out to the last few minutes of the game, or maybe they were shut out in total. But either way, for the defense to look like that against the Broncos offense that has looked so bad this year, I just don't know what else Goody and Matt LaFleur are waiting from Joe Barry, thinking, you know what, this is going to be the week. Everything's going to be different. He's going to totally change as a person and as a coordinator, and he's going to do it right. It's not happening. So I guess they wanted to come into this year and waste another season on a defensive coordinator that was not going to help them. What can you do? Lastly, for the defense, Carrington Valentine, I mentioned earlier about it with Eric Stokes. Obviously, and I was one of the biggest on the Carrington Valentine train this preseason, talking about getting him a Lambeau facade, Hall of Fame, all these wonderful jokes. But so far, in the regular season at least, he's had some nice moments, but he's definitely also struggled in man coverage. We saw it on Sunday. So let's give, I think, the 6th-round rookie a little bit more of a leash here. And I'm seeing people freaking out about his performance on Sunday. And look, it wasn't great, but he also wasn't a 1st-round pick. He's also not a 5-year vet. So give him some time. I still think there's clearly a lot of potential there, but he's going to need a little bit of time to get there. Lastly, Anders Carlson missing his first kick of his career really sucks always, but especially considering the team lost by 2. He missed a field goal, so do the math. But overall, I didn't see a ton of overreactions, which is good. I hope there weren't, because he is, through 7 games, been really good, a lot better than what we were thinking with the way the training camp and preseason went. So Anders Carlson, bounce back. You missed one. You'll be all right. Speaking of kickers, by the way, the Los Angeles Rams are working out Mason Crosby. Kind of conflicted. Like, it would almost be nice to see Mason get another shot, but I also really don't want to see him in another jersey. And on top of that, the Packers play the Rams in Lambeau Field in 2 weeks. So if Mason comes to the Rams and then his first or second game is back in Green Bay, a game that I will actually be attending. Anyone watching, if you're going to be there, let me know. Yeah, it would be weird if I go to that game and see Mason Crosby in a blue and gold uniform. Not into that. But there you have it, guys. Next week, obviously, you have the Vikings game. I'm not going to get into all that right now. I wish I could say I was optimistic, but the way we looked on Sunday and the way the Vikings looked on, I think it was Monday night, it could be another long day, but I wouldn't put it past the Vikings, number one, to look like they've looked most of the year, which is terrible. But also, I'm not sitting here saying or thinking that the Packers season is just over and that they're a garbage team. They clearly have potential. They clearly have talented players. They just need to get it together. It's a lot of young guys. It's a first-time starter. And these are all really excuses. But unfortunately, it's just the reality right now. So everyone, let's hope for a better game on Sunday versus Minnesota. I'll throw out a score prediction, and because I refuse to pick the Vikings to win, I'll have to sound like a homer. Let's go 23-20 Packers. I wish I could say I was confident in that call, but here we are. So as you see at the bottom of the screen, everyone, follow the Pack on Twitter at @thepack_show. Again, I'm really hoping that in the very near future, we're going to have Zach and Jen back here. As you see at the bottom of the screen, follow Zach at It's Zachary J and Jen, Big Mac _4. You can find me on Twitter at Book of Eli _NFL. Everyone, thank you so much for coming in. We'll see you next week. Go Pack, go.